There is a new process on how to become a registered nurse in New Zealand, and it is looking like the starting price will be around 4,900 New Zealand dollars. So the updated pathway includes two steps. So first is verifying your documents with CGFNS, and then step 2 is to apply to become registered. Now, we have actually talked about this on my last video, so by all means, if you have missed this conversation, there is a link above for you to check out, and obviously, please check out Nursing Council New Zealand website for more details. Now, more about the cost. So, registration cost, Nursing Council fee to process your application is 485 New Zealand dollars. There are additional costs from external providers, which we'll discuss more in this video. So first, for example, is verifying and authenticating documents with CGFNS. We've talked about CGFNS repeatedly in this vlog, so please check those videos if you haven't already. Current fee for CGFNS is $300. And by the way, if we are just meeting, kia ora, kamusta? My name is Binibining Veronica. I am a Filipino Kiwi nurse living in Australia, and from time to time I talk about how to become a nurse in New Zealand because you still ask me about this. So I'm giving it to you as requested. And by the way, please make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notification bell so you will know when I upload new videos just like this one. So disclaimer as before, I am not part of any recruitment agency or immigration service. What I am sharing is just based on my experience and the experience of other nurses whom I've talked to in the past. Please always check government websites for the latest details. The videos that I put up in YouTube, they're just for entertainment purposes. So yeah, now that's out of the way. Next. International criminal history check. So all nurses are required by the council to complete a criminal history check. So if you have lived in New Zealand for more than 6 months, you apply to the NZ Ministry of Justice. So there is a link that is provided. Just check the website. Otherwise, for international criminal history check, you must apply to Fit to Work, which has been accredited by the Nursing Council, and the fee per country is 159 Australian dollars. And it's interesting how, like in the list of fees that you have to consider, international criminal history check comes in a second because, in my experience anyway, it is at the latter part of the application until you've received the recommendation from Nursing Council and stuff like that. But anyway, it's there just to let you know. And then the third one is competence assessment examination. So some internationally qualified nurses, so if you are a registered nurse outside of New Zealand, you are considered internationally qualified nurses. Some of them will be required to undergo a competence assessment to become registered. So there is 2 parts, and depending on the recommendation, you may need to complete both. So the costs are as follows. So there is number 1 there, theoretical examination through Pearson VUE. Costs are quoted in New Zealand dollars but are payable in the currency of the country in which you are sitting the examination. So there's 2 parts. Part A is medication safety, and then Part B is nursing knowledge. It's 140 New Zealand dollars. If you need to resit Part A, that'll be $32. If you need to resit Part B, that is 108 New Zealand dollars. And then the second part is clinical competence assessment. This is done in New Zealand. So the orientation and preparation course costs 500 New Zealand dollars, and then the actual OSCE, the actual examination cost 3,000 New Zealand dollars. If you need to resit OSCE, then that's 3,000 New Zealand dollars. If you have just started and this is the pathway that you are going right now, then please keep in touch. I'd like to hear about your experience. If you want to share your experience with other nurses as well going through the same journey, we do have a Facebook group. I'll leave it in the comment section below, but you can just search in Facebook, How to New Zealand Nurse Essentials. By all means, join. And obviously, if you are enjoying this video and you want to support the channel, then click that super thanks icon at the bottom of the video, or simply buy me a coffee by clicking the link below, and that link is buymeacoffee.com/binibiningver. Alternatively, a big thumbs up also goes a long way. And again, if you want to build a community around your plans and goals, we have a Facebook group, How to New Zealand Nurses Essentials. Feel free to join by clicking the link below. If you are a nurse or you know a nurse who wants to grow her career, his or her career abroad, I have a free planner you can use. Just click the link below to grab my notes. Alright, so that's, I guess, the summary of expenses. However, there may be additional related costs from external providers, such as translation of original documents to English if it needs to be translated. And more onto that, I guess, like I mentioned earlier, once we've converted the currency to NZ, it's looking like it'll cost from 4,900 New Zealand dollars or 167,000 pesos, depending on the conversion rate. So this will obviously increase once you add the cost of gathering your documents for CGFNS verification, English test fees, and if you are going to enroll in a review center, if you need to purchase review materials, or if you have to resit part or all of the English subtests. And extra fees, obviously, if you have to resit any components of the competence assessment examination. If you live in more than one country, that's an extra payment for international criminal history check. And also, if you want to budget for your visa application, your plane ticket, and the pocket money or living allowance for the time where you are still unemployed in New Zealand. But like I said, on paper, the starting fee seems to be cheaper compared to those who need to complete CAP, because CAP is really expensive. I have several videos about the fees and what it's like completing CAP. Please check that out if that's relevant for you. Link above, somewhere there. As you know, for another 18 months or so, 2024 to 2025, CAP and the competence assessment examination will run together. This will be dependent on Nursing Council recommendation. So now, two things. When I was creating this video, I was browsing to Facebook. I have seen some posts from nurses who've just completed their CAP and they're having a difficult time, I guess, finding work. So I guess for new applicants, it's just good to know for you as well. Because there has been changes in terms, I believe in terms of the work visa sponsorship. And obviously, there's more competition with a number of nurses moving to New Zealand. And New Zealand is a small country as well. So I guess just take it with a grain of salt. And still persevere. And when you are budgeting, I feel like you may need to have a conscious decision of really having a good living allowance and considering the time that you will be unemployed if you need to do CAP, or if you're just here for the examination for the OSCE. At least budget for the period where you are still unemployed, or if you need to maybe extend your visa or something like that, just put it in your budgeting list. And then second point that I want to do for this video, I'd like to give some examples of what the actual application process will look like, only because I get asked often. So let's look at nurses from UKSMEPI countries. That's just my own gawa-gawang acronym. So UKSMEPI, so that's UK, Singapore, Middle East, Philippines, and I will add India as well because you also ask questions and leave comments and support the channel. So there you go. UK nurses, so same application process. Step 1, CGFNS, submit your documents for verification. What documents do you need to submit? Identity documents, employment history, education history, license validation, and language proficiency. So for Filipino nurses that I talked to, because they had to sit an English test before becoming a nurse in the UK, they didn't have to resit this again for their NZRN application. They just provided the information which was relevant from their first English test. So, and then for step 2, applying to become a registered nurse, they also didn't have to complete CAP. I'm not sure if this will be different now with the competence assessment examination, but I guess as always, this will be dependent on the Nursing Council recommendation. Okay? And then another example, nurses from the Middle East. So, from the Filipino nurses that I talked to who are working in Middle East. So, same application process. Step 1, CGFNS, submit documents for verification. Again, what are the documents? Identity documents, employment history, education history, license validation, and language proficiency. So, for those Filipino nurses that I talked to, they still had to sit the English exam for their NZRN application. So, that's either OET or IELTS academic. There are some changes with the score needed. Link above if you want to watch the video. And then for step 2, applying to become a registered nurse. With the previous applicants that I talked to, most of them had to complete CAP. There may be 1 or 2 who got exempted, but most of them had to complete CAP. So I imagine that this will be the same for the competence assessment examination. And then from nurses from Singapore, so let's split two categories, enrolled nurses and registered nurses. So same application process for SGENs and SGRNs. Step 1, CGFNS, submit documents for verification. What are the documents? Identity documents, employment history, education history, license validation, and language proficiency. So for Filipino nurses who are working in SG as SGENs or SGRNs, they had to sit the English exam for their NZ-RN application, and there was a lot of confusion about this back in 2022. Some changes that were happening during that time. But from the SG nurses that I talked to, because they did not study nursing in Singapore and they did not had to sit an English exam to become a registered nurse in Singapore, they had to do it for the NZ-RN application. And then for step 2, applying to become registered nurse, for SGENs who have satisfied the requirements, they told me that they were given the option to register directly as NZEN or complete CAP in order to become NZRN. Then for SGRNs like UKRNs, they didn't have to complete CAP. I am not, again, 100% sure. So obviously, please refer to the Nursing Council website. But this may still be similar for the competence assessment exam. And however, this will always be based on the Nursing Council recommendation. And then from experience, most of the questions that I get from enrolled nurses, they're usually from Singapore. And I have created videos regarding salary and work opportunities, enrolled nurses versus registered nurses. So I'll link that in the comment section below. Just find them because I talk specifically more about that. But in summary, there are definitely more job opportunities for registered nurses compared to enrolled nurses. The pay is better as well. For enrolled nurses, I think, at least in the past anyway, most of the vacancies are available in aged care facilities. So for older persons in rest homes. So yeah, just for your reference. And the next is for Philippine registered nurses. So same application process. Step 1, CGFNS, submit documents for verification. What are the documents? Identity documents, employment history, education history, license validation, and language proficiency. So for nurses still in the Philippines, you'll have to provide these documents and sit an English test. And then for step 2, applying to become a registered nurse, previously almost all will need to complete CAP. And I imagine this is the same with the new process of doing the competence assessment examination. So I became a registered nurse in 2009, worked there in the Philippines for a little bit, and then applied in New Zealand. And then in my experience, there was no CGFNS back in the day because again, Nursing Council New Zealand only started using CGFNS services back in 2019. So I became a registered nurse in New Zealand 2012. And then I had to go through CAP as well, Competence Assessment Program. And then finally, for nurses from India, same application process. Step 1, CGFNS, submit documents for verification. What are the documents? Sabayan nyo ako if alam nyo. Identity documents, employment history, education history, license validation, and language proficiency. I think just a reminder for some applicants from India who have communicated with me in the past, just take note of the education history. So if you are a registered nurse, you will need a Bachelor of Nursing degree or other equivalent. And a while back, I talked to some applicants from India who didn't have a bachelor's degree. Admittedly, this happened a long time ago, so my memory is really blur. But I think they were given the option to enroll in a nursing program in New Zealand instead and credit some of the subjects. So in New Zealand, it takes 3 years to study nursing. I wasn't sure if that years that they have to study was cut down in the end, but anyway, because they didn't have a bachelor's degree, they didn't really meet the requirements. However, if you are a nurse from India, you have your license, your registration, and you have a bachelor's degree, then that's well and good. But like I said, it will all be dependent on Nursing Council of New Zealand. Obviously, I don't decide any of this. And then going back, all going well, CGFNS will need to verify your documents. You'll need to complete an English exam. And then for step 2, applying to become a registered nurse. So previously, almost all will need to complete CAP. And I imagine this is the same with the competence assessment examination. So bonus! Nurses from Australia, AURNs. So as always, the application process is more straightforward because of the Trans-Tasman Mutual Recognition Act. Link below if you want to know more about the details. Question of the day. Considering the changes in NZRN application, are you still thinking of moving to New Zealand, or are you considering moving to Australia, UK, United States, Canada? Let me know in the comment section below. And I guess some advice, if you have already completed your competence assessment program and you are looking for a job. So I guess the reality is, if you have a preference in terms of where you want to live and where you want to specifically work, then that would narrow down the job vacancies that you can apply to. So I guess the more flexible you are, where you want to live, which area you want to work, either in hospital, acute care, or in residential aged care facility, then obviously you'll have more options in terms of vacancies. But I think it always goes down to the experience that you have, years of experience as well, and specialties that the employers are looking for, and making sure that your CV and your cover letter are competitive. I have created a video about writing your CV, preparing for an interview. If you want to check that out, then watch that next. But as always, if you find this video helpful, then share it to your friends. And I wish you all the best with your journey, and I hope you will be blessed. I'll see you soon. Bye!